Hey everyone, I'm Lorraine Driscoll, founder of Building Better Brains. Happy Thursday, we're almost there. Today I want to talk about what parents complain about all the time, especially moms. Sorry, I'm just going to move this. I feel like it's super dark here and I don't think that's going to change anything. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is if you are struggling with a child who you feel like they are a train wreck, like it just seems like they are so disorganized, they have poor memory, they're always losing stuff, they're overwhelmed, they have meltdowns, all of that type of stuff, that is often linked to a disorganized brain, which I've been talking about a bit this week. But it's important to understand as well that a disorganized brain often has physical symptoms like being ambidextrous. So I know when I was a kid growing up, we all thought it was super cool to be able to write with your left and right hand. And I do remember a lot of kids, and still we see that, say they're ambidextrous. They kind of are, but they really aren't performing well with both, sides and so forth. And actually being ambidextrous puts your child, I don't want to say puts them at a higher risk of learning disabilities. It's actually a sign that the brain is disorganized. And what they found is that there is a much higher likelihood of learning disabilities amongst kids who are ambidextrous. And that applies to ADHD and all of that stuff as well. And what I think is important to understand is that basically what's happened is that the brain hasn't chosen a dominant side. And also that with this brain disorganization, we often see poor executive functioning, and poor executive functioning is a sign the brain is disorganized. It doesn't always mean your child's going to be ambidextrous. So if you're like, my kid is definitely not ambidextrous, that doesn't mean obviously that's a hard and fast rule. It's not that simple, unfortunately, but it is a flag. And what I want to say is that kids who are ambidextrous, it's not always obvious. In functional neurology, we refer to it more as mixed dominance, because there is this mix where they might want to write with their right hand, but then when it comes to maybe playing guitar, they would, as if they would want to play it as if they're a left-handed person. Or they might write with their right hand, but then they kick the ball with their left foot, or they use their right ear to listen more. That's their dominant ear. But then when you ask them, okay, like I do in my clinic, to take a toilet paper roll and look through the toilet paper roll with their eye, and then they take it and they put it up to their left eye. So that's mixed dominance. And that is a sign of a disorganized brain. It's a huge flag. And I always get excited when it happens, because then it means we're on to something. We know there's a reason, a very concrete reason this kid is struggling, and very concrete ways that we can solve this problem. So if you're wondering, okay, does my kid have a disorganized brain? Let me just briefly run through a list. Let me know in the comments below if any of these make sense. Your child loses things frequently. They mix up dates, times, situations, even people. They have a hard time organizing their school material. Their locker is a mess. Their backpack's a mess. Yes, kids' bedrooms are often messy, but your kids is like everything is just a train wreck. They mix up words like paschetti instead of spaghetti. They say aminal instead of animal. Obviously, that's really connected as well to auditory processing, phonemic awareness, dyslexia, as well as mixing sounds when reading. Difficulty organizing ideas for school assignments. They might be clumsy, have poor coordination. A lot of these kids, when they have disorganized brains, have either poor fine and or gross motor skills. They might be forgetful, and they might have poor sequencing when retelling a story they read or heard. And again, that all ties in with that poor organization. So these kids, it's not uncommon for these kids to do poorly in school because they have learning difficulties, and also because they're just so overwhelmed because there's so much brain disorganization. And I see this a lot with kids who have ADHD, where, they have the school assignment, they're like halfway through, they're 3/4 of the way through. I saw this all the time with teaching. And I remember it being so frustrating for me as the teacher and so frustrating for the kid. They lose the assignment because they're so disorganized. They're just always, all over the place. And then they have to restart the assignment because they've lost the assignment. And like, this is when these kids shut down. They're like, look, I've already done this assignment. I'm almost done, or I'm halfway done. And they're so discouraged they don't want to start over. So that's where you're going to have these issues in school and so forth. And these kids get really overwhelmed. They get overwhelmed with assignments. So maybe the teacher says, you're going to do a project on this, and this is like asking them to build the Roman Colosseum as far as they're concerned. It is so overwhelming because they don't have that brain organization and that executive functioning to break things down and chunk it and so forth. And again, this is where these kids can get discouraged because, the teacher gives them these organization strategies. Often the spec ed teacher will take them aside and be like, you're going to color code this, you're going to do this. And every time you get a paper that the teacher gives you, you're going to put it here. And it sounds really good, but trying to put that in action is really, really hard for these kids because their brain just can't do it. They just don't have the brain organization to put the organization strategies they have learned into place. And a lot of these kids will look lazy and careless. They will look lazy and careless because they lose stuff, because they're mixing stuff up. It can seem like they're not paying attention, that they're, forgetting stuff because of that, all of that type of stuff. So, first of all, I want to say the biggest mistake we make is when we think we need to teach these kids organization strategy. They need more organization strategies. They need more color coding. We need to tell them to pay more attention. No, they have something going on in their brain. There's brain disorganization, there's weak connections, why they're having a hard time carrying through on a task or following through on a task, organizing themselves, organizing their thoughts, not getting overwhelmed, all that type of stuff. And all of these organization strategies, I hate to say it, they help a little, but I never found that they made a huge difference as a teacher whenever I would see these kids. They just floundered, they drowned. And so what we need is real change. Number one, we need to identify the weak connections in the brain. We need to find out, is there biochemical imbalance, which we do, right, when we start screening for nutritional deficiencies, food sensitivities, all that type of stuff, toxicity. And is there weak connections in the brain? And I'm going to say that almost all of the time, there are weak connections in the brain. So then once we figure that out, then we go into the brain training exercises. And most of the time this involves sensory motor stimulation. This is not going to happen by memorizing more things or having more color coded things or more schedules. And I'm not saying those things are bad, but they are ultimately not going to solve the problem. So let me know in the comments below. Does your child have any of these symptoms? Does this resonate with whether it's ambidextrous, being disorganized, losing things, the frustration where people just don't understand how overwhelming everyday life is for them? I actually have the advanced brain screening, which I have created. I have a discount on that right now. It's $197 instead of $297 for the do-it-yourself, and $344 instead of $444 for the advanced brain screening, which then for the $344 includes the one-on-one consult with me as a follow-up. So you can get that by messaging me, telling me you want that, and I will, arrange that to be sent to you and so forth. And also, if you want to book a free clarity call to, learn more about my 6-month program where we go through all of these layers, my 6-month program includes the advanced brain screening and so forth, as well as so much else to get to the root cause, address it using all kinds of things like nutritional therapies, brain training exercises, as well as brain training technology. So let me know in the comments below, what are you seeing at home? What is your frustration? And do you think that your kid has a disorganized brain? Thanks for watching, everyone.